Good evening, folks. This is the Spaceman of the Halfling and the Spaceman podcast, and tonight we are catching up with Patrick Dugan, author of the Watchers of Asteria series, the Darkest Storm series, and Fate and Flux, a steampunk adventure. Patrick was last on our show back in November of 2022. Tonight he is also joined by Darin Kennedy, author of Fugue and Fable, The Pawn Stratagem, Carol, and Song of the Ascendix, and John Hartness, publisher at Falstaff Books, author of the Black Knight Chronicles, the Bubba the Monster Hunter comedic horror series, and the Quincy Harker novels. Patrick, Darin, and John, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey, Spaceman.
What up?
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm glad to
How
have
we
you
doing,
guys
kid?
on. So I've heard that you guys have a new project you're working on.
We do.
I don't know what you're talking about.
John, we've talked about this.
Right, I'm not supposed to admit my ignorance in public. Darin's in charge, and I'm pointing down because in my screen layout, he's beneath me. Cat, get out of my ice
Needs me
water.
too.
And y'all are both down here with the way that I'm seeing it. So it's kind of funny. We're like the discombobulated Brady Bunch here.
Marsha, Darin. Darin is, this whole project is Darin's brainchild, so we'll let him take the lead in talking about the awesomeness we're bringing to you while Patrick sits there in his well-appointed office and I sit here trying to convince my cat not to drink my ice water, and I swear it's ice water.
So basically earlier in 2023, I had sort of had a frame shift in what I wanted to do with my new series, Songs of the Ascendant, rather than pursuing the whole New York route, because that would probably put me having a new book out at earliest 2025 or 2026. And on the same day that I was sitting at work, kind of cogitating, maybe I just want to self-publish, I just happened to notice John post online on Facebook, "Hey, everybody, what do y'all think about kickstarting new books?" And I was like, I'm having dinner with John this week. We should discuss that. So we decided together that we would take my new series and the first in his new book / possible series and kickstart them together. This was roughly the same time that Patrick decided to take his most recent project in a different direction as well. And that was just a couple weeks later. So John and I put our heads together. It's like, if 2 is good, 3 is better. So we all got our heads together, and we've been building a Kickstarter to launch my 3 books, Patrick's book and John's book, early in 2024.
That is awesome. Kickstarter has been a great way for a lot of people to bridge the gap in especially with pre-sales. So can each of you talk a little bit about your contribution to this project?
Sure. I'm going to take the lead so that people believe that I am paying attention and I'm not just over here playing with my cat, who I cannot keep his paws out of my glass of water. I'm releasing a book called The Seven Unforgiven, and it is a high fantasy retelling of the classic Akira Kurosawa film, The Seven Samurai, which American audiences may know better as the Western classic, The Magnificent Seven. And I have structured this like some of my favorite fantasy novels that I grew up on, like Raymond Feist's Rift War Saga, or The Belgariad by David Eddings, or Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. Those were all big influences on me growing up reading. And now I've written a book that I think is a fun, high adventure take on kind of getting the band back together. It's also fairly heavily inspired by Nick Eames's Kings of the Wild, which literally was getting the band back together, and I loved that book and drew some inspiration from that as well. It's about a young man seeking justice for a crime that was perpetrated upon his family, and he has to go and he learns a lot about who his mother was over the course of over the course of the book and this adventure and their attempts at justice and maybe a little revenge and a lot of bloodshed.
Sounds very interesting. But whenever I hear about the Seven Samurai, I always think of Battle Beyond the Stars, but I think that's dating me.
I think that you and I are in kind of the same boat here, bud.
Yeah, me too.
This dates us before we ever have to say a word. Come to think of it, looking around the screen, no, we're all a bunch of old farts.
Graybeards. Yep. All right. Who's next?
Patrick.
I'll go next. So my book is called Stone Cold Witch. It's book one in the Nexus Witch series. It actually started because my daughter Emily walked into my office having just finished her third or fourth witch book in a row and said, "I want a book about witches, no love triangles." It's like, so she wrote, it's literally on my board here. It says witches. She just wrote witches, no love triangle. I was like, all right, I'll get to it. And so one day I was like, oh, I know what this story is. So I sat down and wrote it. So it follows Jess Flood, who is a brewery tour guide in Asheville, North Carolina by day, and is the elemental witch for the local coven by night. And she and the rest of the coven are tasked with stopping anything from coming through the Nexus portal. The Nexus portal connects all the other dimensions. Stuff can come in. Usually, stuff that you don't want in wants to come through. So, the all over the world, there's these portals, and each one has a coven of witches assigned to protect it. So, Jess goes to the Harris Teeter after work, ends up running into a demon, killing one of her sisters in the parking lot, and she ends up having to figure out how to stop demons from coming through the portal. And by the way, who's the traitor in the coven who's trying to help? So, but it's all set in Asheville, North Carolina, which is one of my favorite places. Our son Nicholas goes to school there, and it's a blast, literally in some cases.
I haven't
And
seen a
since you
demon in
can't
a
swing
hair.
a dead
Oh,
since you can't
go
swing a
ahead, John.
dead cat in Asheville without hitting a brewery, it's a perfect setting for a book about a brewery tour guide.
Have you thought
Yeah,
about
Yeah.
a love parallelogram?
I'm thinking love rhombus.
A love rhombus? How about a
Yeah,
love
that's fun.
trapezoid?
I'm really into the rhombus right now, so
Okay, rhombus it
A
is.
love tesseract.
Nice.
Tesseract
Just
would be good.
just for the record, a rhombus is a parallelogram.
Yes, I know.
I don't know if y'all could hear,
Just
there was
saying.
a car alarm going out there. Literally, I have 15 minutes in 2023 where I have to be on a call like this, and that is the one time a car alarm has gone off in my neighborhood this year. So, my apologies.
And that's the difference between Darin's neighborhood and my neighborhood.
But is it?
Because in his neighborhood, it hasn't happened before. In my neighborhood, hasn't happened
All right,
yet tonight.
Patrick, your story sounds great. Darin, tell us about your story.
So, as I was working on, wouldn't it be interesting if all this classical music ended up as a story? Or wouldn't it be interesting if chess ended up a story? Or wouldn't it be interesting if A Christmas Carol happened to a young woman instead of a grumpy old dude? That's how all my stories sort of come about. But this one was a lot of different influences at the same time. This one was, what if I take every single thing that I have loved for the last 30 years and jammed it all into the same sort of milieu? So I am taking every 80s song you've ever heard, everything that you like about Buffy, X-Men, Heroes, Highlander, and I'm throwing it all into a blender, and I am telling a story called Songs of the Ascendant. Each different book will take its theme from a different Pat Benatar song. Every chapter of every title is based on a different 80s song. And basically, I haven't got my elevator pitch quite down for this, but I'm kind of like, what would happen? Because here's the love triangle that Patrick can't write about. It's totally going to be in my story. What if Taylor Swift, one of her roadies, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer were in a love triangle and had to save the world for 9 straight books, of which I've written 3?
I'd be sure to buy that book if one of the roadies was Meatloaf.
Meatloaf wasn't a roadie.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, no. Roadies
He
are the
was.
stagehands and the technicians. I was a roadie.
Oh, okay. Well, Meatloaf was in a movie called Roadie.
I believe that.
I believe
I
that.
believe the Meatloaf had roadies.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, that sounds exciting. So, I sense the common theme, and I know you guys have all worked together in the past. But how did you bring so many disparate ideas together and to do it one Kickstarter? You know, what made you decide that this was the thing you were going to create bring these unrelated books together to try to do a single Kickstarter? What was the impetus for that?
Basically, what we're trying to accomplish with the Kickstarter is really getting the word out there about these different books. That one of the biggest challenges, I think, and John can probably speak to this better than I can, is I always tell everybody, you can make the best pizza in the world, but if people don't know you have a pizza place, it doesn't matter how good your pizza is. So we're hoping not only to get a lot of the funding to get the books out from the Kickstarter, but more utilizing the Kickstarter platform to really get the word out that we've got some new stuff coming out that you should be excited about.
I've spent the past several years participating in quite a few Kickstarted anthologies. I end up being asked to be in quite a few of these, and I've managed to generate some goodwill and positive equity within the community by doing so. So now it's time for me to cash in on some of that and go to all of these people that I've been like, hey, I'll help out with your Kickstarter and give you a story. And now it's their turn to boost the signal on my Kickstarter. So a little quid pro quo in that regard. Cat, stay out of my drink. Um, but
The cat just wants some quid pro quo.
no, the cat doesn't want to quid. He just wants all my quo. Actually, he wants all my aqua. But also, for me, I felt like bringing all of us together, we could. I've been part of running several Kickstarters, and there's a lot of work. And I thought that if I helped lend my platform and my reach to a project, I could get other people to do more of the work. And we could, marshal our resources, even in just one of the big things in producing a Kickstarter is fulfillment. And until you've fulfilled a crowd-funded project, you don't know what it takes to fulfill something. Well, I've done half a dozen of them, and I know what a giant pain in the tuchus it is, but I have the thermal printer and the pirate ship account and an admin assistant who will handle shipping of rewards and things like that. So that's along with, a little visibility and a book. That's kind of what I'm bringing to the table is I have some of the experience and I've got people who are willing to chip in and handle a lot of the legwork because between writing my books and running a press, we're all doing 2 or 3 jobs all the time. So splitting the work amongst the 3 of us significant is significantly preferable to me.
Honestly,
Well, and it also,
go ahead, Patrick. Go ahead.
yeah, and the other thing is that you're getting by backing the Kickstarter, you're also going to get access to a lot of cool stuff. You'll be able to add on, current books. You'll be able to buy Tuckerizations where you can put your name or somebody else's name in each of our books. You can, there's a whole lot of different things. There's going to be an option for us to meet up at Con Carolinas and have breakfast if you want to bid at that level. So there's going to be a lot of really cool things that the three of us are bringing to the table that is just going to make the Kickstarter that much better, for the people who are backing it. There will be a lot of options and a lot of really great things to go and get excited about, even more than just the 3 new books.
Darin did a great job going through and researching, and so we're stealing ideas from all of our friends that have run successful Kickstarters.
And one thing I wanted to
go ahead, Darin.
I just wanted to touch on one thing that John said is that he was saying he's been in a lot of anthologies, and what I've noticed pouring through Kickstarter is there's a lot of anthologies, and there's a lot of, this is the 10th anniversary of this book. But one thing I don't see a whole lot of is, here is my new book. So I thought that would be a fun experiment. So that's what we're doing.
Yep.
All right. It's exciting. So it's about time for us to wrap up. Can you tell people how to find this great Kickstarter project?
Sure. It's going to be, I think, listed, written out when this is finally done all together, but it's Kickstarter.com, and then it's /project/Falstaff/Books/New Year New Books, because this thing starts on January 2nd.
All right. Now make sure we get that in the note. I'll make sure we get that in the show notes and on the end title card.
Excellent.
All right, guys. Do you have any parting words before we call it a night?
We look forward to seeing everybody on Kickstarter.
Yeah. Can't wait for everybody to read the new books.
Send me your money.
Okay, folks. I'd like to thank Darin and John and Patrick for coming on the show tonight and bringing us up to date with their Kickstarter. It's always a pleasure to hear from you guys. And and
Gandalf.
John brings Gandalf. Hello, Gandalf.
It's not a video call without a cat.
And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys always at conventions. And it'll be the spring for us before the next convention for us. But this has been the Spaceman of the Halfling and the Spaceman podcast, talking with Patrick Dugan, Darin Kennedy, and John Hartness. And we'll see everybody again in 2024.